He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
Thank you, Mr. President. Given the amount of money that has been spent and the number of lives that have been lost, in your view, with making this decision, were the last 20 years worth it?
There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of an embassy of the United States from Afghanistan.
We're now to Afghanistan, where the government is facing an increasingly dire security situation. In recent weeks, Taliban insurgents have overrun dozens of districts in several provinces, seizing control of trade routes and forcing thousands to flee.
I am President of the United States of America, and the buck stops with me.
There continues to be chaotic scenes in Kabul as residents and foreign nationals rush to the airport in a desperate bid to get out any way they can.
The Taliban is in control of Afghanistan. The country's president has fled, and Western countries are scrambling to get people out.
I did not, nor did anyone else, see a collapse of an army that size in 11 days.
Afghans are running from the Taliban, now in full control, setting up checkpoints with the very weapons American taxpayers bought for the Afghan army, which collapsed instead of fighting.
Nobody predicted that, the government would fall in 11 days.
There are still tens of thousands of people waiting to get out of Afghanistan.
640 terrified people packed on board an American C-17. A decision made in the moment by a skeleton crew of airmen.
I would say that this is now on track, Peter, to be the largest airlift in U.S. history.
I don't have an exact inventory of what equipment that the Afghans had at their disposal.
Breaking news of real importance. U.S. officials confirming to Fox News that there was an explosion outside the Abbey Gate at Kabul airport. Injuries and fatalities not clear at this point.
It was the deadliest day in more than a decade for the American military in Afghanistan.
President, there had not been a U.S. service member killed in combat in Afghanistan since February of 2020. Set a deadline, you pulled troops out, you sent troops back in, and now 12 Marines are dead.
Ladies and gentlemen, it was time to end a 20-year war. Thank you so much.
President Biden in the East Room at the White House.
13 of our brave soldiers are dead. They will never return home to their families. More than a dozen others seriously wounded. A total death toll is now more than 170, over 200 people injured.
This is the worst military operation I've ever seen. It had nothing to do with the military. It had to do with the government that let them down.
Gunfire ringing out in Kabul overnight as the Taliban celebrates the last U.S. troops leaving Afghanistan. This as hundreds of Americans and Afghan allies remain trapped behind enemy lines.
And this is the last American soldier to leave Afghanistan. The Defense Department tweeting out this picture tonight. That's Major General Chris Donahue. He's the commanding general of the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg. He is the final American soldier to leave.
The withdrawal was a catastrophe, in my opinion, and there was an inexcusable lack of accountability and negligence. The 11 Marines, 1 sailor, and 1 soldier that were murdered that day have not been answered for.
Today, the newly Republican-led House Foreign Affairs Committee held a hearing during and after the fall of Kabul, examining the administration's emergency evacuation from Afghanistan.
The Committee on Foreign Affairs will come to order.
Mr. Secretary, thank you, number one, for being here. I wanted to ask you whether or not you would be willing to stay to answer all member questions.
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to stay until every member's had an opportunity to ask a question. Yes.
I now recognize Representative Brian Mast of Florida for 5 minutes.
I think that everybody looking for an explanation about what happened and how everybody got it so wrong, how your administration got it so wrong, needs to look at that as the most likely explanation, asking the president to manipulate the intelligence of what was actually going on with the Taliban. And I'm going to tell you the 13 families that deserve most to really hear the honest answers on that. It's these families. Marine Lance Corporal Kareem Nakui. His family deserves to truly know that. Marine Corporal Dagan Page. His family truly deserves to know if that's why they are missing their son. Marine Lance Corporal Riley McCullum, 20, wife expecting their first child. Sister said he was going to be the best dad ever. Marine Sergeant Nicole Gee, 23 years old. You can see her there holding a young child. Her family deserves to know if that's why everything went so wrong. Marine Lance Corporal David Espinoza, just 20 years old. Family deserves to know if that's why everything went so wrong is because the intelligence was manipulated. Marine Corporal Humberto Sanchez, just 22 years old. Mother said, my kid was a hero. Army Staff Sergeant Ryan Canals. The ultimate honor he could give was to give back to his country. Marine Lance Corporal Jared Smith, just 20 years old. Family deserves to know if that's why everything went so wrong. Marine Corporal Hunter Lopez, just 22. Son of 2 sheriffs, plan to follow in their footsteps. Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Darren Hoover. His family said, I love you, son. Check in on us. Marine Corps Sergeant Johanny Rosario Picardo. Family deserves to know if that's why everything went so wrong. Marine Lance Corporal Dylan Marola, just 20. Family said he always had a smile on his face, was the kindest person. Navy Corpsman Maxton Soviak, just 22. His family deserves to know if that's why everything went so wrong. Mr. Secretary, I do not believe a word that you're saying on this.
Our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had.